Hey, hi guys, it's Vina Jetty, and in my Facebook group, Mastering Multifamily with Vina Jetty, I had a really great question come through, and it basically asks, how do you determine what returns you'll be able to give your investors so you can start raising capital? That is a great question. So when you first start raising capital, you're not really going to know what your investors want or what they're going to be willing to accept as a return. So that's where you need to start getting to know your investors, start talking to them, find out what return expectations they have, and then make sure you keep an open mind, because you might think that you can give your investors a 12% IRR, and maybe your investors want a 13% or 15% or 10% IRR. So it really depends on who your investors are. Your capital is going to be different than my capital because your investors are going to be different than my investors. Now, as far as what works on a deal, that's where your underwriting comes into play. So when you underwrite the deal, you're going to do what's called a pro forma projection. That means you're going to make a series of assumptions about what's going to happen in the future. A pro forma is a forward-looking statement. When you look to your pro forma, that's what's going to tell you how much you can actually realistically return to your investors. So the key here is when you are underwriting a deal, you want to make sure that you're pretty conservative on your assumptions. As an example, let's say that you can get $500 more in rent by renovating a unit per month. Maybe to be conservative, you instead assume that you are going to get $300 or $350. And you can make different assumptions like that are either a little bit lower on what you're expecting to get on income, or maybe a little bit higher on the expense side. That way that you can be under promising and over delivering for your investors. And then depending on what the pro forma numbers come out to be, you'll be able to utilize your NOI to determine your free cash flow projections, and you'll be able to determine how much you'll be able to distribute to investors on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis. That distribution amount is what's going to drive the returns for your investors. And you can look at it in different ways. I recommend, especially when you first start out, to try different splits and see what really works for you. So for example, on deal A, you might be able to do a 7% preferred return and then split 70-30 or 50-50 or 60-40, or maybe on deal B, you have to do a 7% pref with a 90-10 or 80-20. So there's a lot of different ways you can slice the deal and look at it. Maybe on a deal, you need to reduce, waive, or defer your acquisition fee or your financing fee. So that way you can create or keep enough cash flow available for your investors to be paid. So be creative, look at different ways you can look at each deal, and make sure first and foremost, you understand what your investor return expectations are, because without that, you won't know how much you need to actually be delivering before you actually go under contract on a deal that you want to do. So if you underwrite a deal that only has 10% return projections, you're not going to do that deal if you know your investors want 12%. So maybe you'll discard that and then go on to the next deal until one underwrites at the 12%. So make sure you understand who your investors are, what they require, and then make sure you look at the deal in different lenses and try to see if you cut as the GP, if you cut your income from that, or your fees or your promote down, maybe you can make it sweeter for your investors and that will meet their return expectation. That's the only way that I would manipulate the numbers to make sure that it fit investor return expectations. Do not manipulate your assumptions, because if you put garbage into your pro forma, you're going to get garbage numbers out and they won't be reliable, and you probably won't really make it work. And that's going to be a problem for the long game. So always look to the future, make sure you're being conservative with assumptions, and be the one that is ready to take a haircut on the deals for the sake of your passive investors. They should be the pinnacle of every decision you make in your business. That's how I built my business. I hope this helped. If you're not part of the Facebook group already, make sure you join Mastering Multifamily with Vina Jetty, and also subscribe here on this YouTube channel for more. I'll see you next time.